only news worth talking about today.
異世界からゲートを通ってこの世界へ来てお太りになられて帰れない。ちなみに何をしに？
決まっている。それは
まさか戦略？
フライドポテトを食べるためだ。
そんなことのために。
そんなこととはなんだ。フライドポテトは神が与えし神聖な食べ物だ。見てしまいましたか。いかにも。私はダークエルフ。魔力を取り戻すためこじりにするのよ。
ゴー食べちゃうぞ。何見てんだよてめえら。
こちらの食でついた脂肪にはこちらの知識で対抗せねばと。エルフは定期的にフライドポテトを摂取しないといけない掟なのだ。
ダメですよ。ダイエット期間中はフライドポテトは禁止です。野菜中心の食生活を。
フライドポテトは野菜だろう。禁止なんて断るぞ。
Thick Elf is getting an anime adaptation. Soon, TM. Okay. Regular schedule stuff. Rob Schneider argues that woke ideology is close to collapsing. Mainstream media in Hollywood can't continue to ignore half the population. I am in agreement with this. The tide is turning slowly but surely and inevitably against the, ESG, DEI, all bridge, all that nonsense and stuff. Like, you can only push people so far before they say no. I mean, just look at the pandemic response. It's like the powers that be tried to push the thumb screws in, and eventually people just said no. And that's all it took, was just people saying no. And I like Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider has always been pretty chill with things and not drinking the Hollywood Kool-Aid. Unfortunately, he does associate himself with Prager a lot, so, can't all be perfect. Oh, phone, why you beep? I don't care. Okay, I like this little segment here. He would then add, that needs to be the biggest story for you guys, all mass media. The fact that children have chronic illnesses at over 50%, and that's 10 to 12-year-old statistics, so we have to get people healthy. I got little kids, and if that isn't the biggest concern by media, then what is? Schreiner rhetorically inquired before he lambasted the Biden administration perpetually financing Ukraine amid the country's ongoing armed conflict with Russia. Schneider pointed out we need to spend $100 billion on healthcare instead of giving it to Ukraine forever wars when we could end homelessness and get people healthy in 1 minute instead of just dumping our money. I agree. Regarding the concept of wokeness, Schneider would explain what wokeness is entrenched power, and right now Democrats are that entrenched power. Democrats suddenly turned into not being the party of the people. Now they're the party of forever wars, and they're the party of censorship. Truth be told, it's a mono party, but that's beyond this. I do like this part. If you speak out of line, and if you dare not to be part of the one party system, you're out and out forever, the comedian says. So it's nice to see guys like Shane Gillis and guys like me still getting on and doing stuff. I really think the turnaround is happening. I agree. He would elaborate. Mainstream media in Hollywood can't continue to ignore half the population. People just don't live in California and New York. There's another 48 states that really matter and care, and there's people that want to have different opinions. In November last year, during the appearance on John Cleese's The Dinosaur Hour pro-free speech show, Schneider also talked about the effects of wokeism in comedy, defining this ideology as pretend or censorship as intolerance dressed up as manners. I agree. The comedian also noted the left's sense of humor is intellectualized to the point they can't find themselves laughing unless it's okayed, elaborating because it can look badly upon them. He then referenced comedian Andrew Doyle, declaring that there's a certain righteousness about wokeism. You call it and called it a fundamental way of thinking, the closed system of thought, where if you step outside of that, then you're a heretic in outside system. All correct points. Ah, yes. Respawn confirms it will export its disordered sexual behavior propaganda to Saudi Arabia with Apex Legends. For those who don't know, Apex is pretty woke, and they're gonna die on this hill. Let's see. Earlier this month, Esports World Cup announced that this is the point. Earlier this month, Esports World Cup announced that Apex Legends would be one of the games featured in its tournament that takes place in Riyadh this summer. The tournament posted on X, Apex Legends enters the arena. Only the best will compete for fame, fortune, and glory in the Esports World Cup this summer. The rub being it's the middle of Saudi Arabia, and the regime has a certain opinions when it comes to this here crap, and it's not going to fly. But of course, they're going to be defiant on it. Following the announcement, the number of individuals suspected that Saudi Arabia would ban the disordered sexual behavior propaganda that Respawn Entertainment pushes through Apex Legends. One wrote legends that are illegal in Saudi Arabia: Bloodhound, Catalyst, Gibraltar, Loba, Fuse, Valk, probably more. Another posted, since your organization is Saudi Arabian, are your players allowed to play Gibraltar, Bloodhound, Loba, Fuse, Valkyrie, Seer, Catalyst, Bangalore? Still, another wrote, wouldn't a lot of the in-game characters be banned from attending due to where it's located? As noted by these users, many of these characters have been intentionally created by Respawn to push alphabet soup propaganda. In the description for Bloodhound, Respawn uses they them pronouns while discussing the character. There's examples: Valkyrie. Her biography states during the day she smuggled precious cargo. At night, she shot for shot outlaws and mercs at bars. Even though she has had her ladies, her liquor, her love for the sky, she's still obsessed with finding the man who put her father in harm's way, his commander, Cuban Blisk. While these users believe these characters will be banned from the tournament, Respawn shared a statement with Kotaku, of course it was fucking Kotaku, indicating that the developer would have all of his characters available to play and they would not be restricting any of them. Good luck with that. The statement reads, "We are not changing the game. All legends will be playable. No Apex Legends content, legend, or cosmetic will be restricted at the EWC event." Uh, Interesting strategy, Cotton, and we'll see how it pans out. Okay, this is gonna be one, two, three, four in a row for the fallout of the Warhammer 40k Custodes feminization. Okay, starting off with author Isaac Young explains how Games Workshop is defacing Warhammer 40k by adding female Adeptus Custodes. Isaac Young, the author of the Mastroika Divide, explains how Games Workshop is defacing Warhammer 40k by adding female Adeptus Custodes into its lore. Okay, this is going over the background we covered the other day. Get to the new stuff. Okay, Young reacted to these changes and explained how it's being done purely due to the current political climate in Western countries, and shared how defacing the story. First, he wrote, "Of course, anything could happen in a story if we imagine it so, but no one in the history of good storytelling has ever written that way. Why do narratives abide by internal consistency? Why do characters fulfill archetypes? Why do we expect a logical progression of events? Many good questions. Next question." He continued, "Because the stories aren't just hypothetical war games where whatever we say goes, it's a reflection of our reality, however strange or distant. They are part of the transcendent made manifest, no matter how silly or satirical. In short, they are important. And when you compromise that internal structure, that internal beauty, you are defacing it. And especially ugly when you deface a piece of art for a blatant political agenda that has no basis in transcendent reality is downright disgusting. We all know it," he asserted. Next, he addresses the argument that Warhammer is not to be taken seriously, but it's Warhammer. It's not meant to be taken seriously. If it wasn't serious, you wouldn't be. This is really important. If it wasn't serious, you wouldn't bother going after it. Eh. I'm especially tired of this argument. No matter how silly or over the top, stories are always serious, important business because they are meant to be fun. Humanity has invested more energy into fun than any other endeavor. It's not something to be taken lightly. Just think of how many trillions of Americans alone have spent on every form of entertainment imaginable. Fun is a serious thing, and the left wants to control it, he declared. And I agree. This is the end goal. Young concluded, this push for ceaseless inclusion is nothing more than a show of power by defacing something people love. As in today's political climate, we all know they wouldn't be making these changes, and people shouldn't stand for it. It's wrong to destroy people's fun. Young's comment echoed J.R.R. Tolkien's essay in Fairy Stories. I'm going to read this one verbatim too, because this is actually really important. It does lead into a couple of points in the subsequent articles. Fairy story, and his discussion regarding the true form of fairy story, which Tolkien claims the eucastrophe. In the epilogue of his essay, Tolkien shared probably every writer making a secondary world a fantasy every sub creator wishes in some measure to be a real maker, or hopes that he is drawing on reality, hopes that the peculiar quality of the secondary world, if not all the details, are derived from reality or are flowing into it. If he indeed achieves the quality that can be fairly described by the dictionary definition inner consistency of reality, it is difficult to conceive how this can be if the work does not in some way partake in reality. The peculiar quality of the joy in successful fantasy can thus be explained as a sudden glimpse of the underlying reality or truth. Tolkien continued, it is not only a consolation of the sorrow of this world, but the satisfaction, and the answer to the question, is it true? The answer to his question that I gave at first was quite rightly, if you have to build your little world, well, yes, it is true that in that world, that is enough for the artist or the artist part of the artist. But the you catastrophe we see in the brief vision that the answer may be greater, it may be far off gleam or echo of evangelium in the real world. The use of this word gives a hint of my epilogue. It is a serious and dangerous matter. It is presumptuous of me to touch upon such a theme, but if by grace what I say has in any respect any validity, it is, of course, only one facet of truth, incalculably rich, infinite, only because the capacity of man for whom it was done is finite. Tolkien opined. Earlier in his essay, Tolkien also discussed how when one fails to maintain this is the important part. Tolkien also discussed how when one fails to maintain an inner consistency and convey the truth of the laws of the secondary world, in this case it would be making Adeptus Custodes female, readers now view that world as broken. I've always used this as example. When you create something in terms of like story writing or just writing in general, just like any creative endeavor, you make yourself a toolbox. You choose what tools go into the toolbox, and those are the tools you're going to be working with. And that's what you're locked into. If you add or remove a tool later in production and stuff, that ruins the whole thing. Because things you introduce brings in an internal consistency to the creative work and stuff. And once you start fucking around with that there, the whole thing falls apart. Let's see. Tolkien explained what really happens is that the story maker proves a successful sub creator. He makes a secondary world which your mind can enter. Inside it, he can relate is true. It accords with the laws of that world. You therefore believe it while you are there, while you are, as it were, inside. The moment disbelief arises, the spell is broken, the magic, or rather art, has failed. You are put out into the primary world again, looking at the little abortive secondary world from the outside. If you are obliged by kindliness or circumstance to stay, then this belief must be suspended or stifled, otherwise listening and looking would become intolerable. But the suspension of disbelief is a substitute for the genuine thing, a subterfuge we use when condescending to games or make believe, or when trying, more or less willingly, to find what virtue we can in the work of art that has for us failed, he noted. this year little essay analysis on token stuff is really important because it does it does hit the nail on the head. It's like once you break, it's like the internal consistency of a fictional work is paramount. Once you fuck around with that, there it goes straight out the window. It falls apart and you're done, and it's done. Stick a fork in it, and it's done. Now, continuing on. Former Games Workshop employee Nick Davis attempts to defend company's Adeptus Custodes retcon there was no such thing as fact. Nick Davis, a former Games Workshop employee who worked on the company's White Dwarf magazine, took to social media to signal his wokeness in an attempt to defend the company's Adeptus Custodes retcon and its subsequent lie regarding the retcon. Excerpts from the Game Workshop upcoming codex. That's going over the background. We've already been here before. Okay, so this is new to Davis' part. Davis took to social media in an attempt to defend the retcon and subsequent lie by responding to Kern. He wrote, "Well, now it's clear why you're a former team lead, eh? Seriously, 4K lowers unreliable narration at best, myth, legend, and contradiction abound throughout the background history. Heck, even through our own history, if possible, female Marines, Custodes, and alphabet soup representation makes you lose your water. That's on you and you alone," he claimed. If that isn't a pretentious what? He followed up on his response in a more lengthy post. He wrote, I worked for Games Workshop in a very specific part of its history. I started in the mail order trolls and worked my way up into the studio, finishing my career with GW, working on White Dwarf magazine, UK, and then US edition. During my time at the company, especially during my White Dwarf years, I had one mission. I wanted to share the joy of Warhammer hobby gave me to lift up the mystic veil and show you who you, the average gamer like me, could participate no matter what your skill level. In short, take some mystery out of what is dry brushing. Lol, he said. I like to think the most successful, I mostly succeeded in this mission, and I am heartened to hear that now vets in the hobby who cite me as a positive influence. Davis added. For how much longer it's going to remain? The hobby, as I like to call it, is supposed to be fun, a uniting force between gamers to create friendships, a social function, something to be enjoyed and shared, he asserted. You never were supposed to build silos of lore because the very idea of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k universe was the history was so convoluted and fragmented there was no such thing as fact. Everything was supposed to contradict, that was the purpose, he asserted. That being said, I am overjoyed to seeing the hobby that once gave me a means to live being so inclusive. He declared, seeing female alphabet soup gamers and seeing them represent at the highest levels of GW toy soldiers is pure joy. I love it. I wish I had seen more of it during my time at Games Workshop, but we are here now, and you've made this old white dwarf very proud, he concluded. First off, Davis claimed that there's no facts in Warhammer. I just love this breakdown that's coming up. Facts on Warhammer and the Warhammer 40k universe is a complete and utter load of garbage. I agree. It's why the company publishes codices in the first place. In fact, Games Workshop blog post about Adeptus Custodes Codex states, inside you'll find everything you need to play the Adeptus Custodes and Sisters of Silence in the current edition of Warhammer 40k, including a chunk of juicy background lore, 4 detachments, 18 datasheets, crusade content, and combat patrol rules. On top of this, Warhammer and Warhammer 40k could not be as successful as it was without the set rules and facts in universe. And it goes over again the JRR token of how you need to have an internal consistency to build the foundation of your lore, and how changing falls apart. Next, no, and honestly, they did. On some level, they must have known that there was going to be pushback on this. Numerous Warhammer players canceled their subscriptions and announced a boycott of Games Workshop after announcement of female Adeptus Custodes. Numerous Warhammer players are canceling their subscriptions and announcing a boycott of Games Workshop after the company retconned the Adeptus Custodes faction to add females. Excerpts from the upcoming background. Okay. Even Zenler, I hope you had a good day. I had a good day. He explained why he can't. Let's see. On April 14, ex-user Grimdark1 shared a screenshot of him canceling his subscription. He wrote, "Kiss my ass, GW, not another penny." He explained why he canceled and why he's boycotting in a subsequent post. For those asking what happened, GW disrespected their lore by changing decades of old lore. The custodies only taking males from the highborn families of Terra to become custodies. To women can be custodies now too. That totally always have been a thing since the beginning, even though there's never been a mention in any codex or back library book before. Doing we totally aren't doing this for ESG money from BlackRock and Vanguard. Yeah. Another user, Velarunar, responded to Grimdark1, informing he was boycotting a Games Workshop as well. He wrote, "Right there with you. I don't think I'll buy anything else from GW, and I'm not even sure if I want to keep anything anymore." Others announced they also canceled the Warhammer Plus subscriptions. Econ Adept wrote on X, "I canceled mine too. I'm married with kids." He also shared a screenshot of him explaining why he canceled his subscription. "You betrayed the lore and the fans. I will no longer spend money with your company. I will advocate others to do the same. You better hope the woke mob supports you because I will not." Marathi GH also shared, "I canceled mine too. I'm married with 4 kids. One is gay, the other is trans. I'm not against female custodies, even though they've been the Emperor's favorite sons for years. I'm against gaslighting from GW. A good lore based explanation would have minimized this." Yeah, they were like, "Okay, this is the thing now. Deal with it." Really professional, guys. Randy Eagle also shared, "I have canceled mine and sending an email that I want a refund. If the decline, I will dispute it with the bank and have it charged back. I'm not renewing my White Dwarf subscription, and I'm planning to do a new Imperium subscription. Combat Patrol, not now." Baron Ost also indicated that he would be boycotting the company moving forward. "I've enjoyed this hobby since second edition as well. Long nights playing with games with friends in the basement for years. I probably have models older than some of these people calling me a tourist. Yeah, sure, now watch me leave with the money I would have spent on future stuff." Metroid Prime wrote, "It goes further for me. I also unsubscribed to 40k channels I was following, except for Arch's second channel, just to track the impending shit show that this IP will become. If the source material turns to slop, there is zero interest in having it regurgitated by YouTubers." Johnny Dingo 666 responded to Metroid Prime and wrote, "I am doing the same, except Baltimore, I knew the shit show would come to 40k, but it still kind of sucks when it actually happens." Christina, a bunch of numbers, also noted he was boycotting the company. "I feel you. I've been in the hobby since 1998. I work a well-paid job. Getting married later this year. God forbid those welfare left can't afford Warhammer Plus, but I cancel mine as well. I hate people forcing on what to change on something already inclusive and representative." Corndog wrote, "I was going to get one of the Chaos Battle Forces due out this spring, but I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. I think Warhammer, if you have this little respect for the lore, the intelligence of your customers, why bother? I'll stick with old Hammer in the future." This boycott of Games Workshop and Warhammer, due to its obvious embrace of feminist ideology, can only be seen as a good thing because it means less people will be subjected to future propaganda that Games Workshop will inject into its games, books, and TV shows. It also means demoralization that comes along with this propaganda will be blunted. And again, I'm kind of impressed that the author here is mentioning Yuri Bezmenov. This demoralization is noted by former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov, who warned about it back in the 1980s. He shared that this demoralization campaign employed by psychological warfare techniques to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their family, their community, and their country. He elaborated, "It's a great brainwashing process that goes very slow and is divided into 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which it requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism, Leninism ideology is pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, the American patriotism." And hopefully, Ravine has her comeback stream so we can get to our collab on reviewing Yuri Bezmenov's great teachings. Okay. And now we also have the push. We have the pushback from the diehards that have drinking the grape flavored flavor aid. Warhammer 40k fan site attacks players as bigots for disliking female Adeptus Custodes retcon. Okay. Let's see. Background. Okay. Numerous Warhammer hobbyists and enthusiasts have since canceled their Warhammer Plus subscriptions, which we went over in the previous one, and indicate that they are boycotting Games Workshop over the retcon and the gaslighting. In reaction to this, FL wrote an article at Bell of Lost Souls titled Warhammer 40k Only Bigots Hate Female Adeptus Custodes. Within the article, he writes, "Oh no, women are coming to ruin 40k. The bigots need to get over themselves about female Adeptus Custodes." He then goes on to pen, "It seems that happen every time GW takes a step to be more inclusive, to get more people into the hobby. Some bigots on the internet are mad. In a number of online spaces, including comments on our website, people have come out to protest this update. In general, they position themselves as guardians of the lore. Maybe even a few people reading this are in this position. You might be about to tell me how you're not a bigot at all. You simply care about 40k lore and sanctity." And this is where Buddy gets disingenuous. "But you know what? Save yourself the breath and take a seat. The truth is that 40k never cared one bit about internal consistency of its own lore. There's been countless retcons and changes galore from the very first days of 40k. Indeed, 40k is specifically written so that there is no truth, imperfect narrators are the norm, and that everything can and often does change at any moment. And yet, people still get mad about only a small subsection of these things," he declared. Interestingly, this was the argument posited by former Games Workshop employee Nick Davis. We covered that there article. Davis argued, "Now clear is why your former team lead A. Seriously, 40k lore is unreliable narration at best, myth, legend, contradiction throughout the background of history. Blah, blah, blah. I already went over that. This argument on its face does not pass the smell test, given that Games Workshop literally sells codices in the first place. The fact they are marketing Adeptus Custodes Codex by noting this it features a chunk of juicy back lore, 4 detachments, 17 dashies, Crusade Conan, Combat Patrol rules, blah blah blah. Nevertheless, Apfel doubled down on his argument, stating, "The argument about caring about the lore falls apart pretty quickly when you look at people who seem to be mad about it, because it always seems to be when women get introduced that you see anger popping up on the internet. Female custodians, people care about the lore. All of a sudden, the Primarchs have mother, protect the lore. Amara Astarte was a woman. My lore. GW makes a major retcon to the entire setting, changing the timeline, lengthening the anomalous crusade. Not a peep. For that last one, GW even went back and rewrote parts of the novels to correct the lore. They'd never done anything like that before, and actually eraser of past lore, and yet strangely no one really cared, threatened to burn their armies in protest, or quit the hobby." You have to give that the Linkara inflection on that. Like, Just picture a Linkara doing that. He added, "Until the 9th edition Imperial Guard Codex, we never heard of the Rogue Goldoran tank, and then suddenly it was there, and it was always there. Just like with countless other units and tanks before, no one cared about that. But do the exact same thing with women, and we never heard of female custodians before. Now they exist and always have, and a set of people get riled up. The same thing happened mere months ago with the similar introduction of female Bretonian knights, when the same people only seem to get upset about the lore. When the role of women and other minorities is getting expanded and never at any other points, it's crystal clear that what these people's agenda really is and who they really are, bigots to be ignored. Yes, and you can also ignore our wallets." As noted above, Appel's claim that there is no truth is ridiculous on its face. Clearly, there is, and even admits to it because he claims it's being changed. As for his claims about fans getting upset about the inclusion of women and not our changes, there's probably some truth to that, albeit there are plenty of factions that include women and in prominent positions. However, the reaction to females being added to Adeptus Custodes is because it appears to be part of a pattern of franchises and IPs being infected with woke ideologies, one of them being feminism. And many of these fans, hobbyists, and enthusiasts have seen what feminism does to other franchises such as Marvel, DC, and Star Wars, to name some of the most prominent. It kills them. Yes. Feminism is also evil and should be opposed. The ideology has demonic roots, pointing out, it's going over that stupid one thing again. Pretty much, it's conflating feminism with like literal Satanism. I wouldn't go that far. It's literally just Marxism. So that's that. Okay, moving away from Warhammer. Less than a month after acquiring Gearbox, Take-Two Interactive to reportedly fire 5% of its staff and scrap multiple projects. Couldn't happen to a bunch of nicer people. The report details that Take-Two Interactive, the company that owns Rockstar Games, 2K, Zynga, and Private Division, plans to fire 5% of its staff and scrap multiple projects. The report comes from Cecilia D'Estasio at Bloomberg. Writes, Take-Two Interactive Software Incorporated, the company behind Grand Theft Auto video games, plan to fire 5% of its workforce and drop several projects as part of the cost-saving drive. She notes that the company plans to cut costs around $200 million. $140 million is being cut from scrapping numerous projects, while $35 million is being done by firing its workforce. The move to scrap numerous projects and fire its workforce comes less than a month after the company purchased Gearbox Entertainment Incorporated from Embracer Group. Take-Two Interactive purchased Gearbox for $460 million, according to a press release. Take-Two chairman and CEO Strauss Zelnick said at the time, our acquisition of Gearbox is an exciting moment for Take-Two and will strengthen our industry-leading creative talent portfolio of own intellectual property, including the iconic Borderlands franchise. He added, the combination enhances the financial profile of our existing projects with Gearbox and unlocks the opportunity for us to drive increased long-term growth by leveraging the full resources to Take-Two across the Gearbox exciting initiatives. TLDR, a company merger to curbing redundancies. Many such cases. I went through a couple of them. And of course, they're trying to bullshit of how this isn't totally curbing redundancies, and all these here franchises will do fine, and everything's going according to plan. TM. So, kind of curious to see how that pans out. And of course, my favorite part of the news this week that was near and dear to my heart: Wizards of the Coast President Cynthia Williams steps down. Not fired, not laid off. She stepped down, and there's many speculations on why she stepped down. And my favorite one, coming from Rudy, is that she's stepping down to more quickly access her stock options, because there's usually a blackout period where you can't sell your stocks while you're employed. So I'm on team stock options, because she sees where the ship is going, and that is down, and she wants to cash out while she can, and she can't cash out while she's employed. So, ergo, she's quitting so she can cash out her stock options once the embargo wears off. That's my speculation. But the long story short is that she's been riding the Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons brands down into the ground, and people aren't exactly sad to see her leave. So I don't know. I don't think things are going to get better with her gone, but it's still nice to see. Couldn't happen to a better person. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do little batches. Crime-ridden San Francisco wants to punish grocery stores for fleeing said crime. Unpunished crime is so out of control in San Francisco, the city now wants to punish grocery stores who want to leave. Under the Grocery Protection Act, introduced by the city Board of Supervisors member Dean Preston, Democratic Socialists. Stores that want to flee all the crime and other increased liabilities will have to provide the city with 6 months advance notice and make efforts to find a replacement supermarket for the location being vacated. The move comes after Wild Foods shut down its flagship store in San Francisco after being open for just over a year, citing employee safety concerns. The report shows how workers at the store were routinely threatened with weapons, while vagrants would throw food at staff, engage in fights, and even defecate on the floor. One incident saw a homeless man with a knife spray an employee with a fire extinguisher. There were also cases of drug overdoses, with one man dying in the bathroom after overdosing on fentanyl and methamphetamine. I can never say that word. Meth. Thefts were also common, with large quantities of alcohol stolen from the store. Nearly 570 emergency calls were logged from the location, including one call with a desperate plea to the police saying male with machetes back and another security guard was just assaulted. Former San Francisco Board of Supervisors member Matt Dorsey, who wasn't assaulted at the Whole Foods, says he was incredibly disappointed at the closing. Our neighborhood waited a long time for the supermarket, but we're also well aware of problems they've experienced with drug related retail theft, adjacent drug markets, and many safety issues related to them, Dorsey said. According to Preston, our communities need notice and an opportunity to be heard in a transition plan when major neighborhood grocery store plans to shut the doors. I say they can get fucked if they're not going to. If the government is not going to do its job and actually police the city, then why the fuck would any company be like, okay, yeah, no, we'll play ball by your rules if you're not going to be playing by your own rules? It's like, fuck them. Just fuck them. It's like, I like this line. It's like, Preston's proposal would allow anyone impacted by non-compliant store closure to initiate legal proceedings. I've heard notes it's not just grocery stores that have enough of the city. Other large businesses that recently closed their downtown San Francisco locations, including Adidas, AT&T, etc., Nordstrom, and Lego Group, maybe start punishing crime. As if. The Who's Road to Totalitarianism. This is an essay article worth a read, but I'll summarize. It's kind of repeating what I've said in the past, but the United Nations, read the World Health Organization, wants to rule the world. And they're going to be doing this by reinstituting all the COVID measures you saw during the pandemic. You're going to be seeing them rolled out again, and at a larger scale, because they're looking to legislate uh, this heavy-handedness throughout all the participating nations and stuff. They want to actually make laws on this here shit and stuff, and that's how they're going to push the system through. And it's very obvious what they want to do, and it is to be stopped. Well, I forget the exact quote, but to use the Karl Marx quote, it should be like it should be fought against at every stage. You know, don't let them get an inch, or else they'll take a mile. So just a heads up, this shit is a coming. Whether it's Disease X, monkeypox, another round of Corona, they're gonna try this shit again. So just pay attention. Oh God. Okay, I got this here. Kind of gave me a headache when I first read it. Transgender archaeology PhDs and degrees in magic being funded with UK taxpayer money. A Conservative MP in the UK has called for a thorough review of the government higher education funding after it was revealed that taxpayer money is being spent on ridiculous university courses, including a PhD researcher who has chosen to explore transphobic invocations of archaeology. The Telegraph reports that the student in the University of York is given more than £18,000 in a year by the Arts and Humanities Research Council to do detailed research and present papers, including one titled Bones Don't Care About Your Feelings, Challenging Transphobic Invocations of Archaeology in Social Media. I think I lost several brain cells reading that line. The student in question also gave a presentation that noted, "What if I told you when an archaeologist finds a human remains, it's the fact that there are only two choices for gender identification." Yeah, it's almost like there's two sexes. It's like it's like we're a sex-based species, and there's only two, and anything else is a fuck up on genetics. The research is also partially funded by the UK Research and Innovation, a non departmental government body that distributes funds for research, which claims that research projects we support are made via rigorous peer review process. Maybe make it a bit more rigorous then. Oof. Commenting on the findings, biologist Dr. Emma Hilton, co founder of Sex Matters, noted human remains cannot tell us anything about the unembodied gender identity of a person. Providing an example, Hilton urged that a female Viking warrior buried with male typical war possessions tells us only that some women successfully broke through early glass ceilings. But that makes too much sense, and that sounds logical. These aren't people who deal with logic. As we previously highlighted, there is a push among gender activists within the field of archaeology to have anthropologists to be prevented from identifying human remains as male or female because it's known how ancients would have self-identified. In other words, far left activists are now insisting that it's transphobic for archaeologists and anthropologists to identify bones as male or female because they don't know if ancient people identified as the specific gender or not. Pretty sure they had more pressing things to consider. The same people also insisted that archaeologists no longer categorize the race of remains as contributes to white supremacy. Ah, yes, clearly, it all comes back. It all comes back to that. Other equally stupid research projects have been uncovered, including one at Cambridge University, which will involve a PhD student investigating its collection of animals and plants to root out imperial connections in an attempt to decolonize the dodo. I covered news articles in the past of like all this tranny gender alphabet soup nonsense coming up in like paleontology, tranny dinosaurs and shit like that. They're not terribly surprised that this here is coming up in archaeology, which would make a little more sense given as humans. Now, of course, currently advertised research position last 3 years will pay of £33,000 per year. Title is that the Europe that gay porn built 1945-2000. A further course in the university Exeter offers a degree in magic and occult science, with the course leader claiming decolonization, the exploration of alternative epistemologies, feminism, and anti-racism are the core of his program. Of course. This ridiculous appears to be part of a lobbyist group attempting to inject their ideological nonsense into education. I put air quotes around the word education these days. Conservative MP Nick Fletcher said we need to call a scam when we see it. This is taxpayers' money at a time when households are struggling and the tax burden is an all-time high. I agree. We should consider establishing a taxpayer review process to enable ordinary people to review and challenge the UKRI and AHRC spending, similar to the process available for residents to review and challenge local authority accounts, Fletcher added. Good luck with that. This one. Transportation Minister threatens Germans with indefinite weekend driving ban to meet mandated emissions targets. The story even made it to the Anglophone press, so you know it's a big deal. German Transport Minister warns that weekend driving bans, says the Telegraph. German Minister threatens indefinite driving bans on weekends, proclaims Politico. German Transport Minister under fire for weekend driving ban threat, declares Reuters. And of course, he's sorry that he got caught. Volker Weiser does not really want to ban driving. But no, despite the headlines, they're not going to take away our cars. Something, they don't want to take away your gas stove, something. Of course, it's just not the Americans doing the American Democrats doing this here stuff. It's like it's all these totalitarian fucks across the world that want to tell you how to live your life. So it doesn't matter, and it's not terribly surprising that the Germans are all about controlling people. It's almost like it's in their blood. Idle speculation on my part, I assure you. And going over like, oh, we have to reach all these CO2 emissions by blah blah blah, and how you go about that. And it's like, oh, well, we just tell the people not to drive the cars, but we're not. But given how it's creeping up in election season, they're kind of rolling it back. It's like, oh no, we're not totally serious about taking your cars, and it's just like, it's the same song and dance we saw with the gas stoves in America and stuff. They're sorry they got caught and makes them look bad. I imagine they're gonna try to do shit like this on the sly, as with everything else. This one. Shadowy America's linked NGO in Mexico tells border invaders to vote Biden. The Heritage Foundation's oversight project posted an image and X of what they say is a flyer from a non governmental organization operating in Mexico encouraging migrants to vote President Biden once they arrive in the United States. Reminder to vote for President Biden when you are in the United States. We need another 4 years of his term to stay open. The part of the flyer read. The Oversight Project said the flyer was initially discovered by a muckraker journalist while touring the site of Resource Center Matamoros in Mexico. The flyer is also handed out when illegal aliens use the RCM for assistance in coming to the USA, the group said. RCM founder Gabby Zavala told one of the muckraker's journalists that she is trying to flood the U.S. with as many illegal aliens as possible before former President Trump is reelected, because unless they fucking totally cheat the election again and stuff, it's almost a certainty that people are just like, yeah, no, it's like you had your chance. RCM bills itself as an operation which houses functions of all things for Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which helps illegal aliens enter the United States. Oversight Project said, adding that the disgraced Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is a former board member of HIAS, which received numerous grants from Soros Open Society Foundation over the years. And thus, we have another example of the conflict of interests in the higher echelons of power in the United States. Many such cases. RCM has connections with source-funded nonprofits operating across the U.S. Meanwhile, new documents from the Judicial Watch show America has met with NGOs facilitating border invasions. We can't imagine anything more ridiculously corrupt. Oversight Project concludes. Since Biden administration opens floodgates, 10 million illegal immigrants invade the nation. The complex web of NGOs is facilitating the border invasion while the administration looks the other way. I mean, duh. The Democratic battle cry is vote early, vote often. Never forget. So, that's that. Let's see, Marioka's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How's that one? Generation, climate technology. And just open up the rest. Okay. Instead of introspection, NPR suspends veteran journalist who called out partisan train wreck. National Public Radio has suspended veteran journalist Yuri Berliner after he penned a scathing indictment of federally funded network over partisan bias. We covered this here last time. He said, like, dude, what the fuck? And looks like he got shit canned for it. And to the surprise of no one, he got shit canned. So, yeah. Let's see, an open-minded spirit does no longer exist within NPR. Now, predictably, we don't have an audience that reflects America. NPR, blah, blah, blah. And now Berliner has been suspended. This should come as no surprise after people began digging into new CEO Catherine Mayer's own overt bias and woke diatribe she's been spewing on X, including calling herself someone with cis white mobility privilege and other nonsense. We covered this before. So yeah, so the update in the story is that the guy who called out their bullshit has gotten fired. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lawsuit come from this in the not too distant future. Ah, yes. Brink of unrest. Migrants flood New York City Hall in protest of losing luxury hotel rooms. New York City could be on the cusp of social unrest as hundreds of migrants have flooded the grounds of City Hall in lower Manhattan to protest the scaling down of their luxury hotel accommodations, funded by us, the taxpayers. The Babylon Bee's Ashley St. Clair posted on X a disturbing photo of migrants flooding New York City Hall to protest being moved to shelters instead of luxury hotels. That's not a small number. Elon Musk responded with wow, while another X user posted a video of angry migrants surrounding City Hall complex building. Security is beefed up as the situation remains tense. The migrant protest comes a day after pro-Palestinian groups shuttered critical infrastructure nationwide across various metro areas in the U.S., including Brooklyn Bridge. The risk of social instability nationwide is elevated as the Biden administration, through open southern borders and a shadowy network of NGOs, have facilitated the greatest invasion of illegal aliens this nation has ever seen, allowing millions of unvetted people from third world countries, some of which hate the United States as well as are accustomed to violence, are ingredients to spark a perfect storm of social unrest if Democrats don't continue spending taxpayer funds on luxurious hotels, fancy meals, and a monthly stipend for the illegals. Threats of migrant unrest are a national security threat that Democrats are too embarrassed to even acknowledge because their failed policies are sparking this mess. It's almost like it's planned. Democrats are risking the health and safety of law abiding citizens and the nation as a whole to steal future elections and stack the census. Many such cases. Oh, I had fun with this one. Did the United Arab Emirates cloud seeding operation flood Dubai? How it started with the UAE's cloud seeding operations, going over the process and how it's going. A thread of best videos I've seen of the current situation in Dubai from the storm. So, for those who don't know, Dubai suffered a major flooding problem and severe weather conditions. But it's totally, definitely not related to the cloud seeding operations and the terraforming nonsense that the powers that be have been trying for the last little while. Totally not related. Certainly not as cloud seeding. Conductive clouds are associated with sorts of stormy weather we're facing isn't form entirely naturally. Sure, bud, whatever you say. Perhaps the government playing God by fiddling with Mother Nature has unintended consequences. Hell yeah. Okay, this is back to back this here story. Guardian ludicrously reports that Orthodox bishop was allegedly stabbed. The left-wing Guardian newspaper reported on the brutal stabbing of Bishop Mary Emmanuel in Sydney that was caught on camera by saying the victim was allegedly stabbed, even though, the Religion of Peace fellow went to town. There's no allegedness about it. Agreed. The teenager dressed all in black. I'm going to put teenager in quotation marks. The Middle Eastern youth, dressed all in black, approached the altar of Christ the Good Shepherd Church before launching a frenzied attack on the bishop's head and upper body, leaving him with multiple stab wounds. According to the video report posted by The Guardian, Bishop Emmanuel only allegedly stabbed. The Pope is also allegedly Catholic. Oh, God. The video of the attacker shows him smirking while being restrained by churchgoers and police. The Daily Mail also demonized the victim as an anti-vaxxer, as if somehow justified brutal assault. Telegraph also highlighted how Bishop Emmanuel has a reputation as fire and brimstone preacher who expresses anti-alphabet soup views. Oh yes, clearly the guy who's stabbed to almost death is clearly in the wrong in this. Clearly. The stabbing prompted a massive riot outside the church, with the bishop's supporters shockingly not choosing to hold hands and saying "Don't look back" in anger instead. Oh God! And this here is much like the Christchurch shooting back in the day with New Zealand. Australian government orders Facebook and X to remove the Muslim knife attack video. Parishioners and live stream audience members of the Christ the Good Shepherd Church in Sydney, Australia, were enjoying a sermon by popular conservative Bishop Mary Emmanuel when a young male Muslim assailant entered the church and stabbed him repeatedly with a knife. The live stream clip was immediately shared far and wide on social media, with X and Facebook being the easy sites to view the video. Bishop Mar, Mar Emanuel, just rolls right off the tongue, is leader of the Assyrian Orthodox sect with the goal of following. He has expressed stalwart conservative views on Islam, the alphabet soup community, and vocal in the sermons against lockdowns and vaccinations during COVID-19. 4 other members of the church were injured while subduing the attacker. The young man also reportedly cut off some of his own fingers during the struggle. The Australian government, through its e-safety commissioner, has voiced concerns over the spread of the clip, has ordered Facebook and X to remove it from public access within 24 hours on the grounds that it will make people emotional and cause disharmony. No, it's because your chosen class uh, is you know going off your imaginary reservation and actually doing what they tend to do. It is in their nature to do such things, and you don't want the world seeing how you've fallen. How much power Australia's e-safety commissioner actually has to follow through on her threats remains to be seen. The identity of the attacker is yet to be revealed by authorities, but he is allegedly a 16-year-old and was recorded smiling after stabbing Bishop while praising Allah. Once again, Westerners have been treated to a lesson in cultural diversity. The motivation behind Australia's effort to have the event removed from social media is blatantly transparent. If the attack involved anyone other than the Muslim, it is unlikely they would have an interest in censoring the video. However, such horrifying incidents involving potential migrants create growing opposition to the open border policies of Western progressive governments. So rather than addressing the root of the problem, usually exclusive cultures, officials have decided to better hide it instead. Public outcry over the attack has led to protests in the streets of Sydney, with many Australians becoming angry and tired of the special protections allotted to people with the right beliefs and ethnic background. To their credit, the Sydney police have labeled the stabbing a terrorist attack with adequate evidence of religion motivation. Yes, and it was all caught in video, so it's really kind of hard to bury that one. This, though, does not help if the attack is simply allowed to fade into the background until next time the third world decides to force itself into Western public. Ah. Okay, this one gave me a chuckle. Show is over. Angry Biden supporter John Mellencamp throws a tantrum on stage. In a recent concert, John Mellencamp, known for his liberal activism and support of President Biden, has had a total meltdown on stage. A fan, seemingly uninterested in his liberal ranting, shouted, "Just play some music." Music blog Wide Open Country said Mellencamp was in the middle of a story when a heckler in the audience shouted, "Just play some music." Mellencamp responded, "What do you think I've been doing, you fuck?" It doesn't take much imagination what the expletives are going to be. Here's the thing, man. You don't know me, the musician added. You don't fucking know me. He told the concert goers, find this guy and let me see him after the show. Mellencamp told the audience, tell you what I'm going to do. Since you've been so wonderful, I'm going to cut about 10 songs from the show. He then started playing Jack and Diane, one of his hit songs from the early 80s that was number one on Billboard's Hot 100 for 4 weeks. About 15 seconds into the song, he said, "You know what? Show's over." Here's what X user said about the musician turned liberal activist. I actually do like some of these. Henry Rollins moment. Yep, very much. Dude is 72 years old. He should be thankful folks are still spending their hard earned money to watch him sing. Maybe he can head back to Indiana and yell, "Get off my lawn" to nobody. This is what overpaid clowns don't understand. They are paid to make us clap and be happy. Once we stop laughing and clapping, they are no longer functional clowns and they lose their value. The 80s are over, mate. I'll always remember your 2 songs from decades ago. Show's over. Liberals. Trump, 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 Trump. What a massive bitch. I agree. Everything woke turns to shit. This applies to one super cool rock stars, too. I agree. Okay. This here article is really interesting, and I agree with it. A generation lost to climate anxiety. In a far-reaching new essay, The New Atlantis, the environmental researcher Ted Nordhaus makes a damning and authoritative case that while the basic science of CO2 and climate is solid, it has been abused by the activist class in service of a wildly irresponsible and unscientific climate catastrophism. And I agree. For those of you who haven't been following all this here, the long and short of it is Is anthropogenic climate change a thing? Yes. Is it the end of the world? No. Does the Western world tightening its belt and hamstring itself when countries like China and India still exist to continue to pump out all the CO2 in the atmosphere change anything? No. Is it retarded that you're hamstringing yourself when your enemy doesn't? It is. But in addition to that, there it's like I've actually seen kids get stressed out over the stuff of like, and I refer to this nonsense as the climate death cult for a reason and stuff, and that's what it is. It's the death cult. And the fact is that they try to indoctrinate kids in this here shit and stuff, and it turns them into fucking neurotic little messes. And that's fucking vile. This is reckless alarmism, saturated across the mainstream media and endlessly amplified by it. It has profound societal consequences. It both distorts public understanding of the massive benefits of the carbon economy makes possible and grossly exaggerated the risk of extreme events is allegedly makes more likely. As a result, it has rendered reasonable debate on climate policy impossible, even as it has given cynical politicians an easy scapegoat for every societal ill, drawing attention away from regulatory and institutional failures and laying blame instead to defeat of fossil fuel companies and other evil emitters. Perhaps most perniciously, Norhouse details doomsday prophesizing of climate extremists has created hardened skeptics on one side who are increasingly suspicious of all public expertise, while at the same time infecting true believers on the other side with a crippling pathological fatalism that has come to be referred to as climate anxiety. Climate anxiety. If there's any flaw in Nordhaus' damning comprehensive analysis is that he undersells just how much damage the adverse climate anxiety has done already and how much more it is likely to do in the years to come. Let's amplifies climate change instead. I want to see them smoke clouds. See them smoke clouds can do. No, what we need is Tim Curry. Tim Curry as the smog enemy from Fern Gully. Actually, I'm gonna let's see. Curry, Fern Gully intro. I, since I'm making all reference, I have to give context.
I do believe we are destined to be soul mates.
Hit me one time. Hit me twice. Oh! Ah! Oh! That's rather nice. Oil and grime, poison sludge, diesel clouds and noxious muck. Slime beneath me, slime up above. Ooh, you love my toxic love. I see the world and all the creatures in it. I suck 'em dry and spit 'em out like spinach. 'Cause greedy human beings will always lend a hand with the destruction of this worthless jungle land. And what a beautiful machine they have provided to slice a path of doom with my sweet breath to guide it. Filthy ground, acid rain, pouring down like egg chow mein. Slime beneath me,
Man, whatever happened to good environmental PR shit? Whatever happened to the good old days? Yeah, it was so much better back then. So pretty much just going over like the activism stuff, like the Greta Thunbergs, and how politics are all using as a cudgel to control people and stuff, and of course of how it affects people and stuff. Again, the climate death cult, and kids being neurotic about the end of the world, even though it's not the case. Blah blah blah. Well, I don't know. Okay, next. Polling shows how massively unpopular Scotland's hate crime law is. Who could have foreseen this fucking coming? New YouGov poll has found Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf's popularity has nosedived since the introduction of ridiculous hate crime law that caused police to receive over 8,000 reports in 1 week. The Telegraph reports that Yousaf has now an approval rating of minus 32. That's not plus 32, that's minus 32, equating to a 15-point drop since the beginning of the year. So, which means that he was in the negative to begin with. So he's twice in the negative now. Report notes that even among people who voted for his party, more believe he's doing a poor job than those who think he's doing well. Just 29% of Scottish National Party voters believe Yousaf is doing a good job, while 36% think he has been poor in office. Consequently, Yousaf's popularity among his own voters is now minus 7, down from plus 14 in January, a massive drop. The leading pollster, Sir John Curtis, commented that the results show that the First Minister is deeply and increasingly unpopular. It seems that J.K. Rowling was right when she predicted Yousaf would get his richly deserved comeuppance when Scottish people vote. Yousaf now faces increased call among Scottish Conservatives to hold a vote that would repeal the disastrous law, as police cannot cope with the increased workload. And cops gotta cope. Which is kind of funny because like 8,000 hate crime reports in the first week vastly outnumber all other weekly reports of significant crimes combined, including assault, vandalism, and drug possession. It's like assault, threatening behavior, vandalism, shoplifting, drug possession, fraud, and like hate crime. Woof. A year's worth of hate crime 1 week. Annual report hate crimes in Scotland versus the first week of the new law. It's just fucking retarded. I just love it. It's so fucking dumb. His anti-white speech. We covered that before. And it looks like the cops are running interference for him. It's just so fucking dumb. It's just so fucking dumb. Okay, it wouldn't be a news stream without Rona. We have 15,000 samples in Wuhan. Could do a full genome of 700 COVs. Rand Paul drops COVID bombshell. Last week, Senator Rand Paul wrote in a Tuesday op-ed that officials from 15 federal agencies knew that in 2018 that the Wuhan Institute for Virology was trying to create coronavirus like COVID-19. These officials knew that the Chinese lab was proposing to create a COVID-19-like virus, and none of these officials revealed the scheme to the public. In fact, 15 agencies with knowledge of the project have continuously refused to release any information concerning this alarming and dangerous research. Government officials representing at least 15 federal agencies were briefed on a project proposed by Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Paul was referring to the Defuse project, which was revealed after drastic research uncovered documents showing that DARPA had been presented with a proposal by EcoHealth Alliance to perform gain-of-function research on bat coronavirus. We've covered this off and on over the years at this point, if we're being honest. And stuff. It's like they were doing this stuff on purpose, and Chinese incompetence allowed it to leak out. And of course, to this day they're still running interference because, of course, this is like they had a hand in this, and if it comes back to them and stuff, they're going to get fucking lynched, which they should. For legal reasons, that was a joke. But whether anything comes from this, who fucking knows? Honestly, at this point, I just want to live long enough to see these people burn. Let's see. New York College suspends professor energized by Hamas attack on Israel. Okay, this one was funny. A tenured professor is suspended throughout the rest of the semester after writing an essay celebrating the Hamas attack on Israel. McCarthyism is real. I've been relieved of teaching responsibilities. Hobart and William Smith College's professor Jody Dean wrote Saturday on X, "Don't stop talking about Palestine." This is the face of clearly mentally sound individual. Clearly. The images from October 7, the paragliders evading Israeli air defense, were for many of us exhilarating. The New York political scientist wrote a week prior in a blog post for Versco Books. She wrote further, here were moments of freedom that defeated Zionist expectations of submission to occupation and siege. In them, we witnessed the seemingly impossible acts of bravery and defiance in the face of certain knowledge of the devastation that would follow. That Israel practices asymmetric warfare and responds with disproportionate force is not so secret. Who could not feel energized seeing oppressed people bulldozing the fences, enclosing them, taking to the skies and escape and flying freely through the air? Of course she's a fucking little commie. Of course she's a fucking little commie. Of course. Mark Aaron, the president of HWS College, wrote in a letter to the college community, "I deeply regret that as a result of Professor Dean's comments, that now may be students of our campus who feel threatened in or outside the classroom. Not only am I in complete disagreement with Professor Dean, I find her comments repugnant, condemn them unequivocally, and want to make clear that these are her personal views and not those of our institution. One of my priorities as president is to build an intellectually vibrant and relationship-rich campus community," President Guerin wrote. "The college recognizes and affirms the importance of free dialogue on ideas. We have worked tirelessly to create an environment where we can discuss hard issues which we may disagree, but we can never and will never condone or praise violence, particularly when that violence is directed at individuals based on their religion, race, or national origin." American empowered by Hamas. I am growing stronger, laser eyes. The Chronicle of Higher Education reported that the follow-up message from the provost, Sarah Kirk, explained that the colleges are obligated under Title 6, a federal anti-discrimination law, to investigate potential hostile environments involving national origin, shared ancestry, or other protected classes. Some defended the professor's right to speak freely, even if disagreeing with her views, according to the Chronicle. Princeton University professor Robert George said while he found the views the dean expressed in her article appalling, the college's response seemed to conflict with their own endorsement of the American Association of University Professors Principles on Academic Freedom, which are included in the faculty handbook. Whatever. None of the unprotected categories of speech are relevant here, the conservative professor said. Jody Dean did not threaten anybody. She did not harass anybody. She did not engage in defamation or accuse somebody of crying falsely. However, Cornell University law professor Jacobson had different views. "You endorse the academic boycott of Israel, depriving Israelis and American students and scholars who want to study in or with Israelis of their academic freedom," Jacobson wrote in X, responding to the post from Professor Dean. "You are not a ghoulish, depraved communist supporter of Islamic terrorism. You are an academic freedom fraud." I agreed. This news outlet also reported Dean will continue to be paid. She also has access to her office and continue to do research. The spokesperson rejected any suggestion that Dean's academic freedom had been violated and added the professor had made comments similar to the controversial essay at the campus lecture March 28th. And we come back to NPR. New NPR CEO gave TED Talk asserting truth is a distraction. Again, this cunt runs NPR. New NPR CEO Catherine Mayer gave the TED Talk during which she asserted that truth is a distraction which is getting in the way of getting things done. Calls are growing for NPR to have his government funding withdrawn after a series of tweets by Mayer were uncovered in which she supported far-left causes, including endorsing racial reparations and making claims that the planet is burning. But the content of the TED Talk she gave is raising even more eyebrows. Mayer ludicrously suggested during the speech that far-left Wikipedia had a model which actually works very well in determining what truth really is, acknowledging that Wikipedia writers are not focused on the truth, they focused on something else, which is the best that we can know right now. Mayer suggested truth was not a priority. In fact, our reverence for truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Mayer went on to claim there are many truths based on feelings, environment, and perception of different individuals. This is the CEO of a news organization, I need to remind you. In other words, there is no objective truth, and the truth is whatever left wing journalists and biased Wikipedia editors say it is. Elon Musk had blasted NPR in recent days, asserting that the network had become a hard left propaganda machine that tolerates no dissent. That was in response to comments by award winning veteran senior NPR editor Yuri Berliner, who was suspended after sharing concerns about the state of mainstream media. Berliner lamented the declining ratings and sorry level of trust, calling out on legacy press to go back to square one with basic building blocks of journalism. Zero Hedge reports. Berliner just resigned and explained, I cannot work for a newsroom where disparaged by a new CEO whose divisive view confirmed the very problems NPR cite in my free press essay. Musk also highlighted how Mayer, who puts pronouns in her bio, has a history of working for corrupt globalist institutions. Going over the list of the receipts. While NPR often claims to be public funded accounts only a small portion of the budget, the outlet's parent company, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, received $525 million this year, $126 million of which went to public radio stations because much of NPR's public funding is indirect, channeled through member fees paid by local stations. It is able to claim financial independence, reported unheard. Last year, Twitter placed the label on NPR's account describing the outlet as state-affiliated media, with owner Elon Musk commenting that the description seems accurate. I agree. Okay. And closing out today, couldn't happen to a bunch of nicer people. Okay, just strap yourselves in. This one here is pretty funny, and this is further evidence, just like added to the pile of Rob Schneider article that opened up this here stream. In that the tide is turning. Google quickly fires 28 employees who protested dealings with Israel. Dozens of Google employees just learned they can't treat corporate offices like a college campus. On Wednesday, the Alphabet subsidiary rushed to fire 28 employees who were part of a Tuesday sit-in protest against the company's provision of artificial intelligence and cloud services to the state of Israel. The protests were organized by a group called No Tech for Apartheid, which declared Tuesday a day of action at Google. At issue, Google's Project Nimbus, a $1.2 billion dollar cloud and AI contract with Israel, and the Israeli Defense Forces' use of Google Photos in Gaza, which has led to arrest, imprisonment, and torture of thousands of Palestinians with little or no evidence, the group said. It's clear that the Israeli military will use any technology available to them for genocidal means. Last week, Israel's 972 magazine cited Israeli intelligence officers reported on the Israeli Defense Forces' expansive use of AI in the war in Gaza in a system called Lavender. Human personnel often serve only as rubber stamp for the machine's decisions, one source said, typically spending only 20 seconds reviewing AI-selected targets just to make sure Lavender target is male. The intel sources said that, particularly during the early days, the majority of the resulting dead were women and children or people who were not involved in the fighting. Tuesday's protests were staged at the Google's Sunnyvale, California, Seattle, and New York City offices. They included live stream sit-ins lasting about 10 hours. The protesters weren't just hanging around the hallways or lobbies. In Sunnyvale, they took over the personal office of Google Cloud CEO Thomas Kurian and wrote a list of demands on his whiteboard. The police were eventually called, and 9 employees were arrested for trespassing. For those of you who don't know, if you're asked to leave and you don't leave, that's called trespassing. Even if you work there, if you're asked to leave, you stick around, you're trespassing. In a statement, Google laid out its rationale for bringing the hammer down, physically impeding other employees' work and preventing them from accessing our facilities as a clear violation of our policies and completely unacceptable behavior. After refusing multiple requests to leave the premises, law enforcement was engaged to remove them to ensure office safety. We have so far concluded the individual investigations that resulted in termination of employment for 28 employees and will continue to investigate and take action as needed. No tech for apartheid condemned determinations. This is flagrant act of retaliation. It is a clear indication of how Google values its $1.2 billion contract with the genocidal Israeli government and the military more than its own workers, the ones who create real value for executives and shareholders, and not actually the one who gives you the money in the contract. The mental gymnastics communists will do. I swear to God. Last month, Google access engineer who interrupted a speech being delivered by an Israeli based Google executive at a tech conference in New York City. While labor laws generally give the green light to employee strikes and other disruptive actions aimed at things like wages and work conditions, protesting an employer's choice of customer is something else altogether. However, talking to Bloomberg, San Francisco University labor professor John Logan attempted to torture argument on the Google protesters' behalf. Tax workers are not like other kinds of workers. They're special. Definitely special. You can make an argument in this case to have some sort of say or control of the ability to protest how the work product is being used, actually sort of a key issue. Google begs to differ and on Wednesday offered a warning to its remaining employees. The overwhelming majority of our employees do the right thing. If you're one of the few who are tempted to think we're going to overlook conduct violates our policies, think again. The hammer is coming down. I wonder how many Intel employees got fired when they realized they work for a company with one of the biggest facilities in Israel. Yeah, you gotta wonder. Oh God. Trying to think if there's anything else going on. As far as news, that was about it. Pippa streamed from Japan earlier today. That was kind of interesting. It was pretty much a gay girl sleepover, if we're being honest, but as long as they're having fun. Yeah, that's about it. Okay. Thanks for coming. Take it easy. Later.